to the channel. In this video I'm going to look at left foot braking. Now, for years and years, in fact all the time I've been driving, I've considered left foot braking to be a competition technique. So a technique that racing drivers and rally drivers use for various reasons, but not a technique that is necessary or desirable on the road. I've always generally used my right foot on the brake. Most of the cars that I've driven and most of the cars that I've owned have been 3-pedal cars, they've been manual cars. So right foot braking is more of a natural technique in those cars, but when I've switched over to automatic cars, I've always felt like I wanted to brake with my right foot. I've never really felt the desire to brake with my left foot. On the odd occasion that I've tried it, I've done what most people do and catapulted myself almost through the windscreen, because the left foot is trained to operate the clutch. And of course, when we press the clutch, we just stomp on it, don't we? We might release it with some finesse, but we don't press the clutch with any finesse, do we? We just stomp on it. And the first time you do that on the brake pedal, well, it really wakes you and your passengers up, let me tell you. But over the last 12-18 months, I've had a few emails and comments from people asking for a video on left foot braking. And it would have been very easy to just do a left foot braking video where I came on and said, yeah, don't do it, don't bother, it's not necessary for the road. I could be very dismissive about it, but it wouldn't be very honest. It wouldn't be coming from a perspective where I knew how to use the technique myself, where I got competence in the technique. Now, if you're competent with it and you still don't think that it works for you on the road, fair enough. But I decided to teach myself to brake with my left foot and see what the benefits are. I think another thing that's driven me towards trying left foot braking is I've exchanged some correspondence with one of my subscribers, Max Torque. I don't really think that's his real name. If it is, it's a really cool name, but Max is an engineer and he really knows his suspension design and his geometry and all that kind of stuff. I had some very interesting exchanges with him off one of the previous videos in relation to suspension design and the benefits of left foot braking. And I started to think, well, maybe there is something in it, maybe there is something in left foot braking, maybe there's some benefit on the road. So I'm going to talk you through what those perceived benefits are, or what the actual benefits are. But I think the first thing to realise is that you need to teach yourself to use the left foot on the brake first. So I think the first thing you need to realise is you can't just jump in the car and use your left foot on the brake. You need to practice, and you need to practice just gently around town on your, on your commute, nip into the shops. The first time you press that brake pedal, make sure with your left foot, make sure you're somewhere nice and quiet. Make sure you have a good look behind, and I guarantee the first time you press that brake pedal, you will really stamp the car on its nose with the brakes. So you need to start teaching yourself how to left foot brake and get the subtlety of movement in your left foot, get the feel. I mean, that subtle movement, that subtle feel under your foot of what the brake pedal's doing. Because don't forget, the brake communicates with you as well. The brake pedal communicates with you by just letting you know how much pressure you're applying to the brake pedal. It lets you know when ABS is kicking in, you get that vibration if you get close to the ABS. You can feel whether the car's reacting to that right amount of pressure. You need to train your left foot to do all that stuff. You need to train your left foot to recognise those inputs. So what are the benefits of left foot braking? Well, on the track, the answer to that question is fairly obvious. If you're on track, you're trying to keep the throttle wide open for as long as you can before you get to a corner, and then you want to brake as late as you possibly can into that corner so that you're carrying as much speed through the corner and onto the next straight, because your lap time is crucial. So by braking with your left foot, there is no delay. You're not waiting for the time it takes you to take your right foot off the accelerator onto the brake. Now that isn't much time, is it? What is it, 1 or 2 tenths of a second? But on the track that really matters. Out here, it's completely irrelevant. So time taken to remove your foot from the accelerator pedal to the brake pedal is irrelevant on the road, because we're not looking to set fast lap times, we're not looking to just carry as much physical speed into the corner as we can do. A load of other things that we need to consider when we're going into corners on the road. Biggest thing being, what is the just out of view? How do we react to that? Are we carrying the right amount of speed into the corner that we'll be able to stop in the distance we can see to be clear? So minimising the time between lifting off the accelerator and pressing the brake isn't relevant on the road, let's bear that in mind. Rally drivers use left foot on the brake to introduce some instability in the car, and they'll use that in conjunction with a brake balance adjuster so that they can adjust a bit more brake balance into the rear brakes, which will lock the rear axle together with the handbrake. And left foot braking is a technique that allows them to keep the car accelerating through corners while moving the rear of the car around. It also avoids the engine going off boost, so if you're driving a turbocharged car competitively, you want to keep the boost levels high. So by keeping the gas applied, you're keeping the accelerator, you're keeping the engine accelerating, and you're adjusting your speed through the brakes. Again, for me, all of those benefits are irrelevant for the road. That's not the type of driving that we're doing on the road. We want to be, we want to be quick on the road, but we want to be smooth and progressive, and we want to flow. We want the drive to flow. So you can see why my previous thoughts about left foot braking were that, well, it's just not necessary. It's irrelevant for the road. All those benefits really aren't relevant to road driving. But then in a recent chat, and you can see the comments on a previous in a previous video, a recent chat with Max, he talked about modern suspension design and the difference between braking and lifting off the accelerator. Now, I always teach that you should avoid engine braking. Acceleration sense is one thing, where you're lifting on and off the gas in a particular gear just to get the speed right for corners and flow along the road. Engine braking is when you take a lower gear to slow the car. So I've just clicked it down from 7th to 5th, and I can feel the car slowing down. So engine braking is deliberately taking a gear to slow the car. Now, in my view, you want to avoid engine braking for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it only slows the driven axle. So in this car, it's only slowing the rear axle. It's a bit like slowing down with the handbrake. And the other issue with it, and it's not as relevant to what we're talking about today, but the other issue is you're not showing any brake lights to vehicles behind. So we try and avoid engine braking. But Max came up with this really, really clear view, a mechanical view on why you should avoid engine braking as well. When you press the brakes in a modern car, and I'm going to press the brakes now, I'm just going to check the mirrors, nothing behind. When you press the brakes, the suspension is designed to avoid the car from diving. So they do some very clever stuff with the suspension geometry, and it takes the rotational force of the brakes and it sort of forces the nose of the car up slightly, so that under braking, although yes, the car, you will feel yourself diving in the car, you'll feel yourself being pushed forward, but the front of the car isn't really diving significantly under braking. If I do the same thing to slow the car by taking a lower gear, and let's do that to an extreme now. I'm in 6th, I'm going to go down a couple of gears, maybe to 4th. Wait till this car's gone past, check the mirrors. Now what I notice when I do that is that, yeah, the car matches revs perfectly, it's got a DCT gearbox, but I'm just going to do it again. The significant thing is how long it takes for the deceleration effect to kick in. So I'm going to do it again now, down to 4th. And it takes about half a second, 3/4 of a second before you actually feel the car decelerating. Now what's happening is that I'm lifting off the gas, I'm taking a lower gear, we've got sort of a negative torque going through the car, and the car is diving, it's diving forwards, but it takes a second or two for the engine to settle on its mounts, for that negative torque to be taken up by the driveline, and for it to react in the rear axle. Are you with me so far? Please don't let me lose you. It's important, this. So decelerating to slow the car by taking a lower gear has much more chance of unsettling the car. Especially if you do it mid-corner as well. If you go into a corner a little bit hot and you change down mid-corner, it's going to unsettle the car because the car is diving. It's moving significantly more weight forward in a way that you don't want it to move forward. Now, anybody that's been out with me knows that I teach a technique whereby I want to get everything sorted on the approach to a corner before you get to the corner. So that's position, speed and gear, traditionally with right foot braking on the speed phase. And then I encourage people to accelerate right from the very start of the corner. And what I found with left foot braking is, particularly if we're, I'll put my cravat on and we're driving in a more sporting manner, if we're pressing on, what left foot braking allows you to do is to keep some gas on at the start of the corner. So in this car, that keeps the turbo spooled up, it keeps the engine loaded on its mounts, keeps the driveline loaded going into the corner. But what it allows you to do then is modify your speed using the brake. So you can left foot brake on the way into a corner, change down a couple of gears, but keep some positive pressure on the accelerator pedal. This is the important thing. It's not about which foot you press the brake pedal with. It's about giving you the ability to keep a bit of acceleration on through the corner. So let's find a corner and I'll explain to you what I mean. We've got the foot cam on. I've retired the red trainers unfortunately, so you'll have to put up with these checkered ones. And just looking through this series of corners now off to the left here, this is a really open, fast flowing corner, so there's no need for any left foot braking here. So as per usual, I'm talking about a technique now that requires some corners, and I've managed to find the longest, straightest stretch of road in the Highlands. So sat-nav tells me there's a left-hander coming up. I can see all the way through the left-hander in the distance. I'm going to move away from this red car on the near side. That puts me in a good position on approach to the left-hander. Now I'm keeping a bit of gas in, braking, going down 2 gears, and then lifting off the brake pedal and settling the car into the corner. So I'm almost using the brake pedal. In fact, I am using the brake pedal very much like you'd use a clutch pedal. Introducing the drive. So the drive's already there because I've got the gas pedal pressed. The brake pedal just brings me speed down on the approach to the corner. Of course I can click down a couple of gears because it's a 2-pedal car. And then as I turn into the corner, I'll keep the brakes on longer than I would do using my normal technique. And just as the car's settled into the corner, then I'll release the brake pedal very gently and at the same time squeeze the gas pedal. A little bit like you do when you change gear in a manual, you bring off the clutch and you put the gas back in again. So here for instance, a slightly tighter left-hander coming up, left foot on the brake, I'm keeping some gas in, down 2 gears and then releasing the brake pedal. And I've given you a technical description of why you want to do it, but I'm going to give you a subjective reason why you should do it now. It just feels really good. The car fires off out of the corner. Now we've got some twisties coming up. Let's make this a bit more interesting now. So near side position on approach, left foot on the brake, keeping some gas in, down 2 gears, driving the car through these corners. Again, a little bit of brakes on approach, but I'm not lifting my right foot off the gas. I'm sort of entering the corner with a little bit of positive gas, using the brake pedal just to get the speed right on approach, and then releasing that brake pedal as we get into the corner. Now, if you'd have told me this last year, I'd have said no, left foot braking is not for me, not interested. But now I've tried it, in this car, I think there's something as well about the way that it links in with that variable differential on the rear axle, and it feels really nice. So subjectively, and just talking from my heart rather than from my mind, the car sort of gets into a really nice attitude right at the start of the corner. And then one of the most satisfying things about driving for me is always accelerating out of corners. Cars feel really good when they're accelerating out of corners, and this sort of emphasises that, because you're accelerating away from the brake pedal as well. So the car is holding itself back in the corner a little bit, and then you're accelerating away from that. It's really satisfying. Sat-nav tells me I've got a few corners coming up. Never driven this road before, it's lovely. So I'm using the sat-nav a little bit just to help me with what's coming up next. Looks like we've got a few corners coming up. So let's use left foot braking through this series of corners coming up. Plenty of warning signs. So I'm covering the left foot on the brake. There's one important thing to remember with left foot braking. You've not done it before and you're teaching yourself to left foot brake. You've got to give some careful thought to what happens in an emergency. And again, and thanks to Max for pointing this out. It's a really good point, this. In an emergency, all bets are off. You want to get on that brake pedal as hard and fast as you can. My natural reaction will be to brake with my right foot and just to revert to what I normally do. So I'm really careful where I use left foot braking. I'm using it in the areas where I know I get that bit of an advantage, where I'm pressing on, where I'm driving the car nicely through a series of bends, and I want that nice satisfying feeling of the car firing itself out of the corners. So when I was teaching myself to left foot brake, I tended to do it all the time. And it took me, if I'm being honest, and I suppose part of this is because I don't drive that often at the moment. I use the bike a lot for the commute. We've had lockdown. I've not been driving that much. So it'd probably take me 3 months to learn to competently left foot brake. I wouldn't say I'm a real expert at it at the moment, but I've got a nice feel now for the brake pedal. But in an emergency, I know that my natural reaction will be to go to the brake pedal with my right foot, and I think that's appropriate. That I think it's going to need a lot more practice before it'll feel natural to go to the brake pedal with my left foot. So I've turned around so we can drive that little twisty section again, the 2-lane stretch. Really feel like left foot braking was appropriate on the single track roads, because you've got to double your stopping distance there to take into account other vehicles coming towards you. You can't really press on single track roads particularly hard when the view isn't very good. So remember, the purpose of left foot braking is to allow me to keep my foot on the accelerator a bit like that, down 2 gears, and then bring my foot off the brake pedal, let the car settle into the corner. Bit of brakes there, and it really does fire you out of the corner. So we've got warning signs for a sharp deviation to the left. So I'm on the brakes, but I'm keeping the gas in, down to 3rd, off the brakes, releasing it like a clutch pedal. A little bit more brakes there. So now it starts to make sense where we're pressing on a bit. You can really drive the car out of these corners off that brake pedal. So brakes here, keeping the gas in. Like I say, the engine is already loaded against its mounts. The transmission's already wound up with that drive. All you're doing is releasing it with the brake pedal. The gas pedal isn't being lifted. more time for luck with a clear road in front of us. I'll try and emphasise the most important aspects of this. Remember, it's not about which foot's pressing the brake. It's about the fact that you don't have to lift your foot off the accelerator. You can keep some gas in, keep some drive to the car. Keeping a bit of drive in, not lifting my right foot right off the gas pedal. Little chicanes, those little left, right, left, it feels really nice. The car's so responsive. So there you go, left foot braking. Something that I always said I would never do. Just shows you should never be closed-minded when it comes to driving. There's always something new to learn. A big thanks to Max Torque for explaining the technical reasons behind why left foot braking works as well as it does. A couple of things to bear in mind. It's not really something that either of the British advanced driving organisations advocate, isn't left foot braking. So if you're doing a course of instruction, you've got an advanced car test coming up, probably best to avoid left foot braking. This is a bit more of a further advanced technique, if you like. There are some cars which will cut the throttle if you press the brakes. I know some Volkswagens and any cars from the Volkswagen, Audi, Seat group, you might find that you won't be able to get these benefits in those cars, because as soon as you press it, must be a safety override or something. As soon as you press the brakes, the accelerator will be cut. So, you know, find out whether your car does that or not. If it does, then you're not going to get these advantages that I'm describing to you. Be really careful when you start learning how to use that left foot on the brake pedal. I know I said it before, but your left foot, if you're used to driving manual cars and you're used to right foot braking, your left foot has been trained to press the clutch, and we stomp on the clutch. So the first time you go and try this, have a good look behind, make sure you're somewhere clear, you're not causing anybody else any problems. But I suppose there's another lesson in here, is not to be dismissive about things until you've tried them yourself. I've been driving for 34 years this year, and I still learn something new. Probably every time I get in the car I learn something new. When I'm teaching, I learn something new from the people that I'm teaching or coaching. And this has been a real interesting learning curve for me, because I fully intended to go out, learn how to left foot brake, come back, make a video and tell you, yeah, it's not worth it. There's no benefits on the road, when actually there are, under certain circumstances, when you're driving in a particular style. Is it essential? Absolutely not. Do you have to learn it? No, definitely not. But it is a nice, interesting additional skill. I always think driving, it's like putting more tools in your toolbox, isn't it? So I've now got the left foot braking tool in my toolbox. I can use it when I choose to. So what about a 3-pedal car? If you drive a manual car, the clutch, can you still left foot brake? Go on YouTube, go and look at some of the videos of top-notch rally drivers in 3-pedal cars applying left foot braking. It's a fantastic skill, and yes, you definitely can, but it's a lot more faff. In this car, I can easily apply the brake and the accelerator at the same time and change gear. It's just a flick on the paddle, not a problem at all. In a manual car, you need to change gear as well. Now you can actually change gear in a manual car without using the clutch. I might do a video on it one day, but you've got to be really precise with your rev matching. It's not easy. But if you commit to a gear early on the approach to a corner and you know you're going to use that flexible gear all the way through the corner, then yeah, you can quite easily get your left foot on the brake, get the benefits that I've described, and just modulate the car's speed through the corner and come off that brake pedal as you exit the corner. Yes, you can do it. Next time I'm out in a manual car, I might make a quick video about left foot braking in a manual car. But don't get yourself tied up in knots. Remember, there's a lot of stuff going on out there and you've got to be careful. You've got to think about what's happening outside the car at all times. Give a bit of consideration to everybody else. Don't get in everybody's way if you're faffing about learning to left foot brake. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it, got something from it. Maybe you'll go out and have a try at left foot braking. Remember, learn it first, teach yourself, train your left foot to press the brake pedal first. Once you've learnt it, go and try it in the way that I've described, through the corners, into corners. Remember, it's about keeping your right foot on the accelerator. It's not about which foot's pressing the brake pedal. It's about keeping some gas in, keeping the car balanced through corners. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press the notification button, you'll get an email every time I upload a new video. I'm going to have a look at the website, reglocal.com. There's loads more information there about advanced and performance driving and motorcycling. And there's an email address there if you fancy coming and having a day's coaching with me. Drop me an email, we'll sort something out. We're back on a bit more of a wide sweeping Scottish road now, so I'm going to enjoy this. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.